Welcome to the Neurocrush Immersion. This is a quick one. It's World Autism Month in April, and I thought I would pay tribute to Oliver Sacks and what he wrote about the savant brain. Savants, as you know, are people who have exceptional capabilities in the midst of many difficulties. Autism was first described by two experts, Leo Kanner, an Austrian-American psychiatrist, and Johann Hans Friedrich Karl Asperger, an Austrian pediatrician, medical theorist, and medical professor. Very interestingly, one in Europe and one in the US worked around the same time, never spoke as far as we know to each other, and came up with very similar conclusions. Both described children who were highly intelligent but displayed a powerful desire for loneliness and an obsessive insistence on persistent sameness. Oliver Sacks is renowned for many things. He is renowned for being a peripatetic neurologist. He is renowned for his very, very detailed observations about the patients he met. But he is also renowned for his very incisive thoughts about autism. Born 9/7/1933, he died 38/2015. He studied in Queen's College in Oxford and in Middlesex Hospital Medical School, a part of University College London. He moved to the USA and trained in Zion Hospital, San Francisco, and later completed his residency in neurology and neuropathology at the University of California, Los Angeles. Relocating to New York in 1965, he became a professor at the New York University and later at Columbia, with adjunct appointments at the Albert Einstein School of Medicine and the University of Warwick. He was referred to as the Poet Laureate of Contemporary Medicine by the New York Times and became famous for his autobiographical account of treating people with encephalitis lethargica, the book and the movie Awakenings. The movie, of course, starred Robin Williams and Robert De Niro. One of the things that Sacks said was that too often we think of the person with autism spectrum disorder as problematic. In his words, it has to do with qualities of the mind which are preserved, even enhanced, so that though mentally defective in some ways, they may be mentally interesting, even mentally complete in others. And I'd like us to all to hold on to that thought, because too often with autism spectrum disorder, we keep talking about the problems. We fail to see in what way is this person mentally interesting and in what way is this person mentally complete. Sacks goes on to say, what is this quality of mind, this disposition which characterizes the simple and gives them their poignant innocence, transparency, completeness, and dignity, a quality so distinctive that we must speak of the world of the simple. If we are to use one word here, it would have to be concreteness. Their world is vivid, intense, detailed yet simple, precisely because it's concrete, neither complicated, diluted, or unified by abstraction. And if you think about it, all of us pride on our ability to be abstract, to connect the dots. The person in the autism spectrum lacks that ability to be abstract. And it's this concreteness that makes them incisively sharp and in some ways simple in the way that they think. Sacks goes on to say, it is characteristic of the savant memory in whatever sphere, visual, musical, or lexical, that it is prodigiously retentive of the particulars. And a prodigious memory is something that does characterize a number of people in the autism spectrum. Sacks details various talents. Talking about drawing, singular talents usually emerging at a very early age and developing with startling speed appear in about 10% of the autistic, and in a smaller number of the retarded, although many savants are both autistic and retarded, he says. He describes Gottfried Mind, a cretinous imbecile born in Bern in 1768, who showed from an early age a striking talent for drawing. He had, according to A.F. Treadgold's classic 1908 textbook of mental deficiency, such a marvelous faculty for drawing pictures of cats that he was known as the cat's Raphael. But he also made drawings and watercolor sketches of deer, rabbits, bears, and groups of children. He soon acquired fame throughout Europe, and one of his pictures was purchased by King George IV. Josse had drawn the watch with remarkable fidelity, says Oliver Sacks, putting in every feature, at least every essential feature, not just the time, but every second as well, and the inset seconds dial, not least the knurled winder and the trapezoid clip of the watch used to attach it to a chain. The clip was strikingly amplified, though everything else remained in due proportion. And the figures, now that I came to look at them, were of different sizes, different shapes, different styles, some thick, some thin, some aligned, some inset, some plain, and some elaborated, even a bit Gothic. And the inset second hand, rather inconspicuous in the original, had been given a striking prominence, like the small inner dials of star clocks or astrolabes. In describing this clock drawing by a person with autism, whom he calls the autist artist, what Sacks points out is the ability to get into the detail, the prodigious memory for detail, but also the ability to interpret the detail in one's own way as one sees fit. Sacks goes on also to talk about prodigious calculators who attracted attention in the 18th century. Jedediah Buxton, a simple-minded laborer, had perhaps the most tenacious memory of these, he says. When asked what would be the cost of shoeing a horse with 140 nails, if the price was 1 farthing for the first nail and doubled for each remaining nail, he arrived at the nearly correct figure, several pounds. You'll have to believe me that there are several numbers here, as also saying 2 shillings and 8 pence. And when he was asked to square this number, he came up with, after a period of 2.5 months, a 78-digit answer. Now, what was very interesting, Sacks points out, about Buxton's calculations was they took weeks or months. And while he was doing them, he was able to work, to hold conversations, to live his life quite normally. And these prodigious calculations proceeded almost automatically, only throwing their results into the consciousness when completed. It was almost as if Buxton could parallel process. The other interesting domain of savant expertise is the lexical. Sacks points out that some savants have astonishing verbal powers, the last thing one might expect in intellectually defective individuals. Thus, there are savants, he says, who are able, by the age of 2, to read books and newspapers with the utmost facility, but without the least comprehension. Their expertise, their decoding, is wholly phonological and syntactic, he points out, without any sense of meaning. And of course, all savants almost have prodigious powers of memory. Dr. J. Langdon Down, one of the greatest observers in this realm, who coined the term idiot savant in 1887, remarked that extraordinary memory was often associated with a very great defect of reasoning power. Construction ability is another savant skill and has been described by physicians like Down and Treadgold, who consulted at institutions for the mentally defective. Treadgold describes H. Pullen, the genius of Earlswood Asylum, who for more than 50 years made extremely intricate models of ships and machines, as well as a very real guillotine which almost killed one of his attendants. Treadgold writes of an otherwise retarded savant who could get a complex mechanism like a watch and disassemble and reassemble it swiftly with no prior instruction. More recently, physicians have described savants with extraordinary bodily skills, able to perform acrobatic maneuvers and athletic feats with the greatest facility, again with no formal training. Sachs points out that there is very little disposition in all these circumstances for the savant to generalize from these particulars or to integrate them with each other causally or historically or with the self. In such a memory, there tends to be an immovable connection of scene and time, of content and context, a so-called concrete situational or episodic memory. Hence, the astounding powers of literal recall, so common in autistic savants, along with the difficulty in extracting the salient features from these particular memories in order to build a general sense and memory. Very famously, Sachs has said, "The large and small, the trivial and momentous may be indifferently mixed without any sense of salience of foreground versus background." There was a time when we considered intelligence as a solitary ideal, one that favored the mathematical and linguistic among us. As time progressed, emotional intelligence became regarded as being important for both survival and success, EQ rather than IQ becoming the mantra. More recently, the application of Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences approach to a range of circumstances has highlighted the importance of a broader framework of thinking. The theory states that people are not more or less intelligent, rather, that different people are intelligent differently in unique and multiple ways. It's therefore not just how smart you are, but how you are smart. This is exemplified by some people with autism, and the multiple intelligence concept proposes that each one of us has a range of intelligences that we could put to good use, and this is actually extremely important in working with and helping rehabilitate people in the autism spectrum. So, in this short podcast, I have from Oliver Sacks and all these wonderful thoughts a few takeaways. First, it's important to remember that not everyone with autism spectrum disorder is a savant. One must also remember all savant skills are not extraordinary. Savants make us aware that people with autism spectrum disorder may have one or more domains of well-preserved intelligence. Identifying these intelligences could help both the family and their educators work better with the client who has autism spectrum disorder, and of course, all such efforts have to be part of a comprehensive care program. It's World Autism Day and World Autism Month. Let's keep in mind the prospect and the possibility that the people we work with in the autism spectrum may have excellent retained abilities, sometimes exceptional retained abilities. Let's try and find those retained abilities. Let's try and work to enhance those retained abilities. And while they cannot generalize the particulars, let's help them generalize the particular ability that they have into a much wider spectrum of advantage, achievement, and social acceptance. Thank you.